I'm here with my cousin, Mr. Midnight, and let's jump right into it. So we know from the Elden Stars incantation that the Greater Will, which is like an outer god, sent a star to the lands between, which carried the Elden Beast. That star probably went inside the tree, which was the Great Tree, and as you said, acted as a parasite to kind of hijack it.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm,
and that would be even more evident by the fact that the Golden Order, which is the topic, um, in its later developments, um, was cruel towards misbegotten and um, unsightly, unseemly.
Yeah, definitely. Anything like that had, prominence in the old order. I don't know what it was referred to as, like the
Uh,
Crucible,
yeah, you're right. It is the
the
Crucible.
Primordial era, or something like that.
Yeah, the primordial melting pot.
Yeah, the boss Dragon Lord Placidusax actually ruled over that era. It's my theory.
Hmm. I believe, but I could be wrong, that Cruciduax, or however you say his name, um, at one point was an Empyrean himself. Or
Oh,
maybe he had a, goodness, I can't really remember, but I believe he had a god inside him that left.
yeah.
In,
Because his remembrance does
yeah,
say something about that. It says that he was the first Elden Lord, which leads
yeah,
me to
that's what it
believe,
was.
yeah, which leads me to believe that there was an Elden Ring in the lands between before the Great Tree came. So the Elden Ring, comes before the Golden Order. And then also it says that when his god left him or something, he
Yeah,
stays and wait for its return, I guess.
absolutely. And there definitely a prominent theme of gods living inside characters.
Oh,
Um, with the giants, they have the face of their god on their chest.
true.
With Rykard, he fed himself to this divine serpent.
Yeah, that's what that made me
Uh,
think of.
yeah,
And then I guess even with like the final boss, like Radagon is in America, and then the Elden Beast is sort of
yeah,
inside the Erd
absolutely.
Tree or something, and the Elden Ring is
Yeah.
inside of them. Craziness.
Now, with the Golden Order, there are some very heavy themes that are more prominent in Christian philosophy, um,
Hmm.
and something that you wrote actually um, was the use of pulleys and levers and crossbows
Yeah.
and the giant lifts, um, which I think absolutely were all established during the time of the Golden Order. Um, from what we know from the characters, that order was a life philosophy as well as a system of government,
Yeah.
and draws a lot of parallels to many real world things. I believe that it's one of the Golden Order spells. Actually, it might be the little inscriptions whenever you use the Golden Order Greatsword.
Oh.
Um, they look very reminiscent of Da Vinci's sketches. The Vitruvian Man, he created lifts and flying machines and advanced puzzles, and all of it was an incredible man, much more so artist. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, and because I remember when I looked at the pulley crossbow and pulley bow descriptions, they said that they were invented by a certain Golden Order fundamentalist, who I was assuming was Golden Mask, because he's like the most prominent one we know of, but that's just a hunch.
Could be.
I found out in my research that Golden Order fundamentalism, which led to all these great inventions, actually became a part of the Golden Order later in its lifespan. Because at first, America was chosen to be an Empyrean, as we know, and
Yeah.
Godfrey, who was like the strongest warrior, was chosen to be
To kind of be her concubine.
yeah, Elden Lord slash warrior man. And so he helped fight the wars against the ancient giants and the ancient dragons who ruled the lands previously to basically, establish the Golden Order's dominance in the land.
Yeah.
And then he was exiled.
Yeah, there are a few points that should be said here. One of America's and Godfrey's children was actually a friend of the dragons.
That's right.
And
Godwyn the Golden.
Yeah.
In Fortisax, I
Yep.
think. They started the dragon cult, and the Golden Order kind of came up with their own version of lightning, which was golden instead of red.
Yeah. Yep. But no, it is interesting. We don't know which war was started first or who started the wars.
There's one
Go.
spell that says that I think it's Erdtree's protection. It says that when the Golden Order arrives at the lands between, all factions were opposed to them. So I think they probably were fighting, maybe even fighting multiple wars at the same time. You know what I mean?
With the giants, who they seemingly were rallied against themselves in a way to destroy, for the Golden Order to get their soldiers and for the giants to have a lot of their culture destroyed.
Yeah. Because I think they probably posed the biggest threat to the Order due to the Flame of Ruin, which is kind of like the downfall of the Erdtree.
I would agree.
But I wonder how they were killed, because when you go to the Lands of Giants, it looks like they all were like death-bladed, All this.
It does, which is interesting.
Yeah.
It almost makes me think that because Deathblight happened after Godwyn died, because he's the root cause of that, they either were aware of it or harnessed it to plague the giants.
Yeah, it could be.
Of course, the other remnants, I should say, of the war would be the trolls, which from, I think it's the Sword of Manus, states that he was small and looked down upon as a giant. And likely because of this, Manus and the other small giants rebelled against their culture and their people,
and probably fought alongside the Golden Order.
Yeah, and even more evident by the fact that, as previously stated, the giants have the face of their god on their chest.
Yeah.
And all of the chests and torsos are removed of the trolls.
Yeah.
Placed instead with a stone tablet.
So there's definitely some mystery around the conflict with the giants, but we know from Godfrey's armor set that he fought in that conflict, and we know that Marika subjected the last fire giant to watch over the flame, the forge, and make sure it doesn't get too hot. After all the major wars are fought, Godfrey is exiled, probably because he's mainly there as a warrior and not as a figurehead. And then Radagon is chosen, who was the husband of Queen Renala, the the most powerful Glintstone mage. Radagon, the husband of Queen Renala, he was called to the Erdtree capital, and he ditched his wife, and she never fully recovered from that. And
she's still traumatized holding an egg of her dead husband.
Yeah. A little crazy, but So then he goes and he starts a renaissance in the Golden Era because his mastery of Glintstone magic and Erdtree incantations is basically the center stone of Golden Order fundamentalism. Yeah, so then I think this is where all these revelations happen, technical revelations and things like that.
Absolutely. The pulling bow, the Golden Order incantations, the Grand Lift, the capital became, by their standards, more civilized, orderly.
Yeah, definitely. Versus Godfrey's rule. And I found a little thing which said that during Godfrey's rule there was still like arena combat, which was like a tradition of the Crucible, but that stopped when Radagon got there. I know that Godfrey had the Crucible Knights, they followed him, and they used Crucible magic.
Yeah.
But I think they were tarnished along with him, so maybe that was like the Erdtree needed their strength while it was, establishing dominance, but once they had it, they cast out the remnants of the bygone era.
Yeah. Gurranq is an interesting character. Malekith.
Yeah. Because Marika kind of cast him aside a bit, because usually shadows, are by the side of their Empyrean or I guess owner or whatever.
Yeah.
But
they are bound to protect them.
Yeah, exactly. But she cast Malekith to instead protect the Rune of Death, which is another pretty key part of the Golden Order, was that they took out the Rune of Death from the Elden Ring so no one could die, or technically. But so Malekith.
All those that do are reborn. So.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that all those who die are buried at the roots of the Erdtree, and then the Erdtree kind of sucks up their bodies, and you see that. It's really grotesque, all these bodies melding together and turning into roots. And then the Erdtree will, remake their body and their soul. But I think the Erdtree has the ability to take in their soul or not take in their soul. Because with Spirit Ashes, we see some souls that have not been allowed to return to the Erdtree,
That is interesting. I think it's covered in the DLC.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
As Miquella is believed by most of the fan base to be the one to harness Spirit Ashes first.
Yeah. And the original owner of Torrent. Yeah, that makes sense. I think that would go along with his principles too, because he didn't like how the Golden Order outcast certain groups of people, and he wanted them to be accepted in the Haligtree. So, him trying to find and help the outcast souls, I think definitely fits in with his character.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, but so that was a big part of the Golden Order. It was great for some people, cultural renaissance and all that, but then for everyone who didn't fit within their perfect version of order, they were outcast, lost, enslaved, tortured and deformed. So, it was not a great place to be for everyone. There were nobles who had a great time, and maybe that was it. I think death was probably important as a way of control, because the people who the Golden Order wanted to protect could be infinitely reborn, whereas the people who the Golden Order didn't like, but who were still powerful. If they died, they could outcast their soul, and there's no way of them ever coming back. So they could give some people death, but give other people rebirth. Great form of control.
I almost wonder if death being removed, which I don't know if it's been stated, but death after the demigod Godwyn died, or at least his soul died, his body lived on, which is where we get Deathblight, which is this plague of thorns which just destroyed.
And their roots too, which is interesting.
They are, which is also why I think that Godwyn is more of a growth on the side of the original tree.
I agree with that, because his body's also ever growing. You see it in a lot of underground places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see his face everywhere.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I guess you can't technically die, but because Ronnie used a part of the Rune of Death to kill his soul's gone forever, cannot be reborn, but his body keeps growing. Whereas her body died a true death, but her soul lives on. Kind of confusing, but it worked for her. So we know Godwyn, Golden was killed, half, partially. And after that, America smashed the Elden Ring. Yeah, and Radagon tried to repair it. In my theory,
I would say, go.
Oh, okay. I guess my theory for that was that America was sort of rebelling against the Golden Order and the Greater Will, whereas Radagon was more of a puppet to it. I think that maybe the Golden or the Greater Will just had more control over Radagon, but it could have been the other way around too. But because we know that the Golden Order has control over its Empyreans and subjects and stuff, like they do have influence. So I think that the Golden Order was probably controlling one of them more. I don't know. It depends on whether the Greater Will wanted the Golden Order to remain or whether they wanted the world to go into chaos. And I have theories for both. Because right after America destroys the Elden Ring, she gets imprisoned, which kind of goes to show that, the Golden Order wasn't a huge fan of that. But it could have also been imprisoning Radagon, so he didn't try to repair the ring anymore. If you think about it that way.
And the Golden Order is kind of just a link to the Greater Will.
Yeah, it's not like one and the same.
And I don't think it was the Greater Will's kind of goal for the shattering to happen. But it could be completely wrong, because if, in my own head, none of the demigods, who each have an extension of the Greater Will via the fingers, they all neglect theirs.
Yeah.
The fingers die and become lifeless. And after the player finishes the game or gets to a certain point in the game, the fingers go silent.
True. And then also, because the sites of grace, right? If you think about it, they lead you in every direction to the worst places imaginable. You know what I mean? They lead you to Castle Morn, and there is absolutely no shard of the Elden Ring over there. So it's what is a Greater Will trying to gain from leading you to those places? Maybe it's just trying to make you stronger and help you out, but maybe it's trying to cause you despair. And then also, in the Godfrey boss cutscene, right? He's holding Morgott, and there's a tiny little light of grace next to him, and it goes and it points toward you, which is telling them that he needs to fight you. So grace was kind of working against you in that way, and maybe it was doing that because it wanted to stop you, or maybe it just wanted it was may the strongest Lord win. I don't know.
That's curious.
Yeah. And then there's also some of the finger readers talk about the curse of America, where she wants us to suffer onto eternity. There's also that little bit. So I don't know. I really don't know whether she's working in cahoots with the Greater Will, and Radagon was more, a fan of the Order, whereas Marika was working with the Greater Will, or Marika was rebelling and Radagon was working on behalf of the Order and the Greater Will. We kind of just don't know whether the Greater Will was maybe he thought that the Golden Order outlived its usefulness or something like that, or they thought that the Golden Order, but I don't know. There's no definite way to prove anything at this point. We don't have enough evidence.
No. Fortunately not.
A lot of hidden stuff in the game. I'm really excited for the DLC.
Yeah, I am too.
It's gonna be epic. Hopefully we get a new ending. One's a little more upbeat or something.
No, knowing FromSoft, it's just gonna be way more depressing.
Well, I think that basically sums it up, though.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for helping me out, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, brother.